So now it's Barkha's is in control. She's going to come to you. She's going to ask questions. If you have any questions, you can ask her. But then she's going to do the questions, and you're going to answer this time. So over to you.
Thank you, Renuka, and thank you very much for those questions. Like I said, I much prefer being in that seat than this seat. So I'm extremely happy to come back to my natural role. Thank you very much. So what I want to do is I want to hear from a lot of you. I see some familiar faces, a lot of new faces, and I think that there's so much conversation among ourselves. You know, somebody was saying in the morning, I think Dipali, you were saying, is gender still a binary? Today when we talk about empowerment, do we mean female empowerment, or are we talking about human rights? I tend to believe that it's still different for women than it is for men. And you know, even for women in this room, and we're all relatively privileged, we've had advantages that maybe other women don't, even for us, it's a battle. There are other women who don't feel it's a battle. So what I want to just do today is to just throw out this question, how has being female, maybe if not hindered you, you know, how has it been different? Do you run your company differently from a man? Do you have different HR rules? Have you had to sacrifice in a way that men haven't? Have you been judged in a way that men aren't? So I just want to hear from you. You can ask me questions also, by the way, because I know you may have things to say to me. Dipali, why don't we start with you, since you had this thought.
Okay, do you want me to get another mic? It has been different. There's no doubt about it, because I think, in fact, being a woman, I feel gives me two sides to any perspective. I feel often, in comparison to the men that I see around me, they are single-faceted. And I feel that I have the ability to not just multitask, but use softness as a skill. There's a feminine side which I think plays a very large role in managing people. And softness has been my strength. And I think there's a big difference when you're a woman, your understanding of things, your, you know, just maneuvering any situation in a manner which just comes intrinsically and naturally to women, doesn't always come to men. Sometimes I have this conversation with my husband. He would look at me and say, yeah, but you know, how did you maneuver the situation to suit you with just talking to the person? And I'll be like, because it was easy. I mean, you see what the person wants, and you know, you just give them the prior thing. Why would I? It's not about my opinion against somebody else's opinion, but his would be a little more straight up. You know, it's so A or B. Yeah. The gray comes, I think, with the...
But it's interesting, two thoughts from that, and I see Preeta sitting there, so I'm going to take it to her, which is that, you know, the moment women say that, oh, we're better managers, we're better leaders because we're multitaskers, I always say being these super women is chains of gold. And what I mean by that is that we, you know, these ads where you have this perfect female creature, and who knows what her children are doing, who knows what's for dinner, who knows whether the sheets are clean, but who also runs a company. Why do women do this to themselves, Preeta?
Barkha, I've been a bit spoiled. If Dr. Reddy had a son, I don't know if I'm going to be saying all these things. But having said that, I think from the whole ecosystem has been good to us. And it's been fun working, having children. And my daughter-in-law is next to me, by the way. So we've lucked out on that. I think you just have to take it as it comes and never shirk responsibility. I think sometimes we kind of, you know, shield ourselves saying, oh, but I'm just a woman and maybe I can't do that. So if we take that veil away, we should be able to manage. In fact, we have a bit of an advantage. Once in a way, if we want to push something, we can actually do it gently. And men get a bit nervous about, you know, saying,
but you know, you're a female.
No, so it's worked well.
Your three sisters, it's a female. Four sisters, a women-managed, women-driven company. How is it different? How do you think it would be different if these were four men?
It would have been hard, let me tell you that.
Why?
We've been dads, little girls, four of us, and whatever he wanted, whatever his dream was, whether it made practical sense or not, we just did it. I don't think sons would have done the same thing, in all honesty. So it's different. Being a daughter, you just do it because you see your father working very hard. And all daughters would say that.
Yeah, I'd agree as one half of two daughters to my father. I'd agree with that. Yeah, feel free to clap. Don't be stingy with your applause. But I want to hear both Dipali and Preeta have said it's actually, women can do things men can't. In some ways, it's easier. We are more committed in a way, is what I'm hearing at least Preeta say. Is it sometimes the other way around? Do we take on so much that at the end of it, I was in Calcutta and the designer Anamika Khanna was talking to me and she said, there was so much pressure I took on myself that 1 year I felt I was going to be physically ill because the pressure to be perfect in all roles was so intense. And I'm interested to know whether there's a generational difference.
So I think that I have a slightly different perspective because I'm in a different place in the life cycle of starting a family and, and building a career. And I think that in this foundational stage, as you might call it, it's really difficult to figure out how you can give the weight that starting a family and raising a child and running a house that it deserves, while also, giving yourself fully to building a career, starting a career. And, before getting married, when I was working, there was just work. I could do it anytime, day or night. Yeah. There was nobody else who I was responsible for, nothing else that, my time was taken by. And so I think that it's very challenging when you want to give that your all, but then on the home front, you also would like to give it your all. And figuring out, where, how, when you make time for both. And I do think in the long run, you can make time for both, but I think in the short run, you always feel like you're not really able to do either one to the most.
So here's my question, and I'll ask you first, and then I want to open it to everybody. Why aren't men feeling that pressure?
I think that the sad reality is that the expectation is still that the woman is the foundation for the home. And I think that even if you do have a very successful, woman who is responsible for so many people in a large organization, I would say mommy still is the foundation of our family, our home. And so I think that onus really just isn't there on men for some reason. And I think it's just a reality. I think that's how it is.
So anyone else want to jump in? Maybe, please. If you can also just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Surekha Kothari.
Hi, ma'am.
I've met you when I was the national president.
I do remember that, but I just thought for the benefit of everyone. Yeah.
Right. Actually taking off from what Ishani said, I do believe that in India especially, and I don't know if it's all over the world, but I think that our conditioning has been so severe since we were kids that very few of us had an unusual upbringing in that men and women were treated equally when you had a brother at home. So that actually starts off everything, your expectations of sacrificing for others. And, my mother used to say things like, when you get married, and I was talented, my father aborted 3 careers of mine.
Really?
There was nothing I could do, yes.
Why was there nothing you could do?
Because he said there's no finance available to you, and so you try your worst.
What did you want to do?
So first, I was a singer, and I had started singing, and I had started recording. I was a recording artist, and people like Kalyanji Anandji wanted to train me, to take me into background music, but he said no, it's not a good world. Then a dancing group wanted me because I used to do a lot of Bharatanatyam. That was aborted. Then my dean came to my father's house and said, look, she's my prime student. I've got a scholarship in my pocket for London School of Economics, so will you please let her go? And he said no. So all he wanted was marriage. And he said, I'm not willing to support her financially. And I really didn't have anybody to do that for me at that point. So, that conditioning took you all the way there, so much so that after I got married, I became a real fighter. And I did a lot that I could, including, FICCI national presidentship. I wanted to grow. I wanted to do things. So I recorded as much as I could. But it's not like you can take up one career when your parents are there. And then my mother said things to me like, you have to get married and you have to then leave everything. Because then you're, just going to be a wife and you have to, your sister-in-law will be like your sister, and your mother-in-law will be like your mother. And you know, all this idealism that we were taught, and we managed to the best of our ability, but still it took its toll on who we were as people, because as you said rightly, it was always we.
Yeah.
So the I didn't come in very often.
So don't you feel sad about that today?
Well, I had a lot of regret earlier, but then I realized, you know, because I'm also a hypnotherapist, I do a lot of work on karma. So I also realized that, you know, this is a karmic situation where I don't think you can regret. There is no scope to regret or fight.
But there's still a lot of life left for you to pursue your dreams.
Exactly. So, you know, jab jage tab savera. That is what I took at every point in life.
Well done. Thank you. Ma'am.
Hi, Barkha.
Hi.
Is it necessary to just channelize ourselves to people sitting in this auditorium? What I feel is when we're talking about women, we should be talking about the masses, the women who don't get the opportunities that we do. And when you are so fond of Kashmir, what is the state of the women there? How do they react to life? I feel we are a country where for some reason all gods have goddesses standing next to them. We've never thought of a, you know, Krishna without a Radha or a Vishnu without a Lakshmi. The thing is, in India, women have always been the strength and the power, right? Down to the ladies here, many of my friends are not NGOs, but they do work with that level nearer the villages, right? And we find it's very strange, but a lot of men do not have anything like the strength women have. They've had their babies, and we've known women who are not educated, dealing with computers and, you know, moving on in life. I have a friend behind me, Radha Patsati, who works with people like that. And, you know, I know Soha Ramani who works like that. And a lot of people who, you know, move on. We are the fortunate ones. We are the fortunate ones. We really don't.
I think that's a really important point to make about the privilege that we come from. But, you know, battles are everywhere in all classes. But, of course, women, you know, at the bottom of the caste ladder, at the bottom of the class ladder, fighting very different battles. Ma'am.
I'm the only one who doesn't have a sweet voice, but you have to bear with me. I was born in a business family, but like Surekha said, my father told me very clearly, you will not study further than a degree, and then you will get married. So I got married. And then, but always at the back of my mind was the thing that, why couldn't I study? I was a very good student. So when I had my children, I had 2 girls and a boy. I said all 3 will be qualified in the same way. So they all did engineering, they all did their MS, they all did their MBA, and they're very successful in their work. So that way I scored. What I couldn't do, I let the children do. So you can always project this thing on somebody else. Not feel regret for what you didn't have in life. I don't have any regrets. And then it so happened 14 years back, I stumbled across a village. There was nothing. It was, women were all in agricultural work, and they had no money, they had no roof, they had no self-respect. I suddenly said, let me do something for them. Then I organized them, and I taught them how to make masalas, you know. Not that I had any experience, but it's taken off to such a degree. Now they all earn 5,000 rupees, they get bonuses. They have a gleam in their eyes, and they have a spring in their step. And, you know, as a journalist, I would like some of you to go around and say that they don't have to be qualified, they don't have to be literate, they don't have to have a craft or this thing, but you can always empower them.
I think what's also important is that if you couldn't fulfill your dream, at least make sure your daughters can. What you couldn't do, don't make marriage the central ambition of a woman's life. If it has to happen, it will, and so on. Anyone else wants to jump in? Yeah.
I have yeah, thank you so much. Actually, I'm getting all goose pimples here when I'm talking to you, and I'm getting flitter in my heart because I've never had this area. So I'm actually a writer and an image coach, and my journey started very differently in Chennai, wherein I actually had to struggle with my career. People wouldn't accept me as an image coach because they wouldn't let me allow to talk about how dressing and grooming can change your perspective as a personality. And, it was not easy for me. The battle was really tough. And today, after 7 years, I'm standing here being successful and talking about it because, the way I clicked and the way I, unleashed my potential, I would like to say 3 things to women. What I felt. Women always tend to seek validation from their husbands, from men, that they're doing something great in life. If you feel validated from within, you don't have to seek validation from anybody else, firstly. Secondly, self-esteem, self-regard is something which a woman doesn't have today. If you really, really have that self-regard and self-esteem, you go up to the level of accomplishment and self-actualization. You don't need anybody else. Thirdly, women, if they support each other without judging each other, I think that's the biggest support what we can have for each other, because most of the time, when a woman is doing something extraordinarily different, she is in a fearless pursuit to do something differently, people by her side are actually pulling her down, trying to tell her, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. My husband is doing extremely well. But still, I click differently from a lot of women out there, and some of them don't understand my fearless pursuit of doing things differently. So
I think those are 3 important points. Yes, my dear.
Hi, Barkha.
Hi.
I'm Aditi Prasad.
Hi, Aditi.
So I run a movement called Indian Girls Code. We are bridging the gender gap in STEM by focusing and teaching kids robotics, coding, STEM,
That's really
artificial
important,
intelligence. And we really focus on the underprivileged girls, both in urban, poor, and rural areas. My question to you is, in your opinion, what's keeping women out of tech? Now, this is other than the socio-cultural, economic.
But that is the key thing. You see, I'll tell you, I remember on one of my We the Women festivals, Kiran Shaw said that she found that women did not get left behind in men in the pursuit of science-oriented degrees. So women would go and get the degree and then not convert it into a job. So I do think that there is no reason but the socio-cultural one. Otherwise, how will you explain that a woman headed India's missile program, Tessie Thomas, women led the recent Chandrayaan mission, right? So you tell me from your experience, since you're getting young girls and it's Indian girls who code, what do you find? Is there anything but socio-cultural?
I mean, so on one side we have where education becomes so important, right? So we give them this kind of access to tech skills or coding skills and get them to kind of be on par with what their male counterparts would be doing. Then we have the corporate world who's, the recent trends have shown that there's such amazing flexible policies for women now to get back to work, work from home, and so many more things. So I think, yes, socio-cultural reasons are very important, but as a society, what can we do? To kind of empower these young girls.
I think role models. See, I know from my time in school, and I think things are different, that women were always pushed to the liberal arts and men were pushed towards the sciences. And by the way, this is a pressure on men too. There are men who want to come into the social sciences, and that engineer doctor pressure is a very serious pressure of Indian society. So we have to realize that the socialization that imprisons women also imprisons men. But I do think that there are 2 final frontiers left for women to conquer. One is STEM, and the other is the military. I think we've seen a very big change from the time I went to report the Kargil war to now women are flying fighter jets in the Indian Air Force. But there's still many, many more sort of obstacles to cross. I do think there's no reason but socio-cultural. Women routinely outperform, girls routinely outperform boys in school, in STEM subjects. So that old thing that girls are not as good at math as boys, I mean, that's just all bunkum. So good luck for everything you do. Okay, who else?
Barkha, I have a quick question.
Okay, wait. You have to let me steer this, otherwise I can't keep track of who's speaking. I'll start with you.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Right now, I'm in the non-profit sector. I used to be in the management of corporates. So I want to set a larger perspective, Barkha, because if you look at the Indian labor force, the share, the women are
falling.
It's dropping out.
I just wonder how many of you, 20
Yeah.
million Indian women, 20 million, just internalize this number, left the workforce in the last 2 decades. So what I really want to ask any of you here, if you left your job, what made you do it? And if you're battling to get back into the workforce, what's stopping you?
Yeah, so in the last decade, it's come down from some 35% to 25%, 25, 26%. And okay, even if you take the board or the corporate CEO segment, about less than, if you take only the National Stock Exchange listed companies, only about 3%, 3.5% are on the, or CEOs are on the boards. And it's not so much better in Fortune 500 companies, it's only about 5 or 6%. So world over, this trend of women. But one interesting thing is in the developing economies, if you see the rest of the Asian countries, the working population, women working population is increasing. It's gone up to 40%. But in India, it is decreasing.
So I want to share 2 points in response, and then I'll take the next question. Actually, women work more when they're not well off, because they don't have a choice. And oddly, we find that as women's economic status improves, data shows you that fewer women work. And in my opinion, it should be the other way around, because if you have access to education, you have access to resources, you should have more women working, but the data shows you otherwise.
That's right, because the largest dropout is between the, if you're promoted to a middle management, they drop out. They don't want to take on the responsibility. So you were talking about your passion that drives you to become something. Somewhere we are stereotyping ourselves and saying, it is for me to take care of my family.
I agree.
And we're not moving beyond that.
So I have a line that we all empowerment debates are about equality at the workplace. But actually, there can be no equality at the workplace till there's equality at home. So, you know, when we say, yes, women, the expectation is still of women leading, playing that lead role at home. As long as that is not 50-50, there will never be 50-50 at work. Most women cannot cope with juggling so many balls in the air. And every woman I know has dropped out of work because they can't take that multiple pressure. So we have to push for more equality at home. Ma'am, your question.
Thank you. I actually have had a very successful IT career. And I think that my road to success started at home because my grandfather and my father and all the men in my life played such a hugely important role in imbuing a sense of confidence. I think that that is what is missing in education. In fact, I ran a 3,000 plus men organization with nothing but 6 PhDs reporting to me, and nobody could guess that I was an architect by training, not an IT person. So I think that at the root of all of this is high degree of confidence that only comes, like you said, starts at home, and we all have to embrace the other half of the population, which are men. They have so much to give, and I feel sometimes sad about this, men versus women. Women are subservient, women are this, women are that. Well, what are women doing for ourselves? What are the all-girls school doing to train women in confidence?
I agree with you. And I do think it keeps going back to what's happening at home. Ma'am.
So, Barkha, I'm Ranjini Manian. Hi. I run an NGO called Champion Woman currently, but formerly I ran a foreign direct investment company called Global Adjustments. So bringing foreigners into our land was an eye-opener that they believe we are super intelligent and super capable, man or woman, and they didn't look at us that way. So after a 25-year stint, handing over my business to my daughter, I realized that the real need is not even in we the women, but in I the woman.
I agree.
Exactly like what you're saying. We don't need to have other people empower us. We're losing our own power by ourselves. So what can we do to set a confident career path? Only by doing steady emotional well-being. We come from the land of yoga and meditation. How many of us women take the time for me space and me time? If we did that, couldn't we become resilient leaders?
Well, the part that I really agree with is that I think women are just carrying too much guilt. And no matter how liberal you are, how much of a rebel you think you are, how much you think you've questioned the norm, I've seen this with really close friends that, you know, that impossible thing of juggling home and work, and I know many women corporate leaders are here who've done it, but it does take a toll. Not everybody is able to do it, and we have to recognize that. And I think all of you need to also make your workspaces friendlier for women to remain in the workforce. Yeah, but that's a tricky one, because if I'm a man and I see the woman going home and getting a more flexible schedule than me, I'm going to be resentful. So it's a really, really delicate thing to walk. I keep going back to this, that till we have equality at home, till we challenge the stereotypes at home, till it's not only the woman's responsibility to see what's food on the table, what the furniture is, what the children are doing, what the grandchildren are doing, have they done homework. You need today's generation of men to, I mean, maybe our previous generations have come and gone, but you need today's generation of men to do more at home. Ishani, are you asking your? I mean, she's got her mother-in-law sitting next to her. Even if she wants to say something different, now she can't. Now, poor Ishani. Ishani, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, but yes, my husband's mother is sitting right next to me. But, yeah, but that's important too, because actually Mummy has been very, very supportive in the fact that I have kind of pushed my husband to get more involved. And it was a push at the beginning, but over time, he has kind of embraced it. He wants to be involved. And now he has realized a certain pride of ownership in our home and a pride of ownership in raising our son. And I think once you give men that sense of pride and happiness in taking on those responsibilities, it almost, reinforces itself. But
Okay, I need to respond. I come from a very traditional Andhra family, and we girls would do whatever the men said. And then I'm watching this, Karthik being like a good dad and doing this. So the first time it was like, what is my son doing? But now I'm like, oh my God, what a change. So, you have to give credit to the next generation. And by the way, I have to say this too, that men are taking time off when children have exams. In our organization, the men say, public exam, I need a month off because I have to coach the kids, and we are so happy to give it to them. So I need to say that.
That's so important, because those are the changes we need. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation actually has something called family leave. They no longer call it maternity leave or paternity leave. So if the father wants to take what a woman would get as maternity leave, the Gates Foundation gives that. So these are interesting things. I'm really happy to know that the Apollo Group is giving men time off for children's board exams and the kind of thing that only women had to carry the responsibility of.
Hi, Barkha. I'm Geeta Madhavan. I'm a security expert and strategic analyst. And so you can imagine that's an area that's hardly touched by women. So when I started work for my PhD, and now also, so when I started my PhD on terrorism, my son was very, very young. So the main thing that happened was I had to make it very clear. My husband's a lawyer, so I had to make it very clear that there should be as much time of quietness for me as there was for my husband. So if my husband's working on an important case, the house has to be quiet, then it has to be quiet when I'm doing my work too. And in the other field outside the home, I had to kind of make the men take me seriously as a security expert. That I was not just there because I've broken the bastion, so I'm the only woman, so we'll indulge her. No, it wasn't that I can give them a run for the money. So now the word is, when I speak or make a presentation, it's like, so who are you going to shoot down today? And which guy are you going to give him a hard time because he hasn't got his facts right? And you've got it, and then put it down and say, yes, you're wrong. It's very difficult to tell people at that level, men, intelligent, DGPs in a foreign country or a guy who's working at that level, tell him that you are wrong. So I had to actually tell a Sri Lankan general he was wrong in what he was saying about the LTT. So you have to be, so what I'm trying to get here is you have to be, and I say this wherever I go, women have to build core strength. You have to build that strength in yourself that you are right and you can do it. Thank you.
That's so well said. I
Barkha,
completely
we
agree.
thought
Yes.
it's good to start something this
Yes,
side.
I was coming
It's
this
sort of
side.
very biased, So just
There's
like
so many of you, I'm trying to keep pace. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just divert the question a little bit on the other side. See, everybody's talking about what they've done, but I think who is the person to be blamed for creating this inequality? Is it we or is it the society?
Well, we are part of the society. We're not different,
correct.
right?
But there are professions which I think today are still not women friendly. For example, you can take Air Force, it's there, but Army, we still can't have. So what I'm asking today is that we as mothers, do we have to bring that change? Yes, we are trying to do, but is the society going to accept? That's one question. Second thing was, I was recently a part of Jobs for Her as a forum. And there was one of the things that we realized that there's one particular career that people can get back is machine learning. So because machines are taking over and women are faster, I think that's another career that one could take. But like you said, chatbots, is there a way that we can sort of steadfast those careers? That's a thought that probably...
Well, I think that's a very good point, and I think those of us who are leaders in our own spaces owe it to help women get back into the workforce. So that's why I really want, if someone wants to share a story of you're having to leave work and you're looking to get back, what's been the problem? Is there anyone here who stopped working and has been wanting to get back? Yeah? Yes,
Barkha.
coming there. I'll start here and then I'll come there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Anupama. I'm a chartered accountant.
Hi.
And yes, I think workplaces in India do not have creches. They don't have daycare facilities. They don't have flexi-time options or work-from-home options. So maternity leave is only 6 months, 4 to 6 months, which is not enough because there isn't a good nanny or a daycare system. So I think until the government or the companies bring in a rule that every workplace must have all these facilities, it's very, very difficult for a mother to come back to work leaving a 6-month-old or 3-month-old child unless she has a joint family system or in-laws around. On a lighter note, if we can come up with an invention where men can have babies, then I think half our problem will get solved.
I agree with you. I mean, there would be none of this inequality. Yes, you were wanting to say something.
Hi, I'm Vanita Venugopal, and I was the ex-senior director at Dell, driving the strategy for the CEO's office. Many women are not there in that field, but 2.5 years ago, unfortunately, I had to put down my papers, which a lot of my good friends had told me, why would you give off something and move back to India? Because I was an expat in India for 4 years. And I have a 14-year-old now and a 7-year-old daughter. She was 6 months when I moved to India with the expat, doing great. 6 months in the US, 6 months in the US, 6 months in India. And then my mother-in-law was my pillar of strength. She was taking care of the household. I was doing what I had to do, and things were going great. But then she fell down one day while doing puja and then hurt her hand, which had a multiple surgery. That was the end of my career as a career woman. My husband runs his own organization, but then in the morning, when the maid is out, or when the office manager doesn't come, or the housemaid, it's me who's worrying about how the kids are going to school, who's getting fed, whether the drivers have come, whatever. Again, coming from affluent family or having all the means is just not enough. Who is taking that extra responsibility? No, he's wonderful. He'll take it, but still it is in the morning at 7 when the kid needs a breakfast. He's not getting into the kitchen to cook. We can't swig in food all 3 times a day. But as I said, I think Indian women have a lot of potential. They can do wonders. But as much as support we get, we just need somebody who is managing it so you're out there getting what you need.
You're kind of reaffirming what I believe, that you need that breathing space at home for women to be able to work. And I really hope you're able to get back into some version of the career you wanted for yourself. Don't give up on that. How much time do we have? Yeah, I'm coming to you. How much? Last question? Okay. So, okay, I'll take last 2 questions.
Huge fan of yours, Barkha. We all grew up seeing you on TV. I'm Pune Oscar architect, and I work in an extremely male chauvinistic field called building construction. I have 2 quick questions for you. How do you handle male chauvinism in your field? And second is, what do you think should be the government strategies to reduce or eliminate social conditioning of women?
In my particular case, I learned early on that, and I think she made that point, that you have to find your core strength. You have to stop worrying about what other people say. Women worry too much about what other people think of them. I don't mean to say this in an arrogant way, but I literally do not care what a single other human being thinks of me. I literally don't care. And that could be good also. Like the way to, it's not that I care about the praise and I don't care about the criticism. But it didn't always happen like that. I had to train myself to be that person. It's like going to the gym. It literally is like core strength. You've got to walk every day, run every day till you can walk one day. The first time you'll walk 1 kilometer, but after 1 year you'll walk 10. So you have to say it's okay to the I. I keep saying bring back the I in your life. It's okay to first be an individual, then be someone else. If you value someone's opinion, seek it. If you haven't sought their opinion, what they think about you shouldn't matter. Quick answer to what should the government do? I don't know if the government can get involved, but our curriculums can get involved. How we socialize, the colors we give boys and girls, the extracurricular activities that boys and girls do at school, to not discriminate on the basis of these, to actively encourage women, girls to go into spaces that were considered boys-only zones, whether it's strategic affairs or military matters or sport. We have to consciously push girls in that direction. Do I have time for one last question? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Barkha. I
Hi.
think I'm going to end the morning with the last question back on journalism.
Yeah.
So this is something I've been quite inquisitive about for quite some time now, and this is regarding paid journalism. Like we as consumers today, on an everyday basis, we are being fed information which is manipulated. Be it any story, we do not receive the real story. Everything is covered, copy-pasted as per whoever is, sourcing it out to us.
Yeah.
So how do you see the media industry progressing in the future? Because somewhere I feel it is, bringing disinterest to us, because gradually we turn our faces away from the stories we see, because we all know somewhere deep down it is not what the reality is.
So I think more than paid journalism, we live in an age of fake news, right? So it's basically these WhatsApp forwards. We think that they're true. We think that what we read on Google is true. And what's happened is, in America, there was such a backlash to this because it actually, many people link the virality of fake news to the win of Donald Trump. So you say that fake news actually had a political outcome. So a lot of these internet platforms are now under enormous public pressure that what they post as platforms has to be accurate. So what a number of them have done, Facebook, for example, I don't know if you know this, has actually partnered with 12 fact-checking groups whose job is only to fact-check what is put up. Because see, again, the point is when it was the age of mainstream media, you had editors, you had people checking facts, you had researchers, you have nothing. Most people are getting their information on that phone.
But is real news never manipulated? Like real stories aren't manipulated
I'm sure what you call real news and I call mainstream or old media has had its share of manipulation, has its share of bad apples. All professions do. But what you're dealing with today is a technology challenge. It's called deep fake. Look it up. It's called deep fake. And they're saying that artificial intelligence has actually become so evolved now that the challenge of the future is that you will be consuming content. You'll have no way of knowing whether it's, it's dystopian. You'll have no way of knowing whether it's real or true. And the only thing that can counter this is public pressure. So there's no point saying, oh, the media is terrible. Okay, the media is terrible. Please reject the media you find terrible. Don't keep embracing in mainstream media. It operates on advertisements. If you stop watching it, it'll stop getting ads, it'll close down. In mainstream media, there are easy answers. You want to reject somebody, just don't watch them or read them. It's the digital space that I'm really worried about because you don't have that option of just, it'll still show up in Google. Fake news has a virality that authentic news doesn't. So the answer has to eventually come from the public to put pressure on these platforms to fact check, fact check, fact check. And I think on that note, it is lunchtime.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a brilliant audience. You've been wonderful. I hope you're all able to pursue your dreams and embrace the I in you. Thank you very much.